Bob, we've heard, last year I met the rural bank manager from NAB who has a portfolio covering their rural investments across Australia, and there was an undercurrent to the conversation where he was very, very aware of climate risk and the massive exposure on their balance sheet to climate change across their agribusinesses. Is there a genuine growing awareness among super funds of this risk, and how are we going to see some sort of replication of the enormous investment flows we're now seeing in Germany come into the Australian clean energy sector? What are the buttons that we need to push as advocates and proponents?
Got half an hour for it's a great question, and it's something that certainly a lot of people in the industry have been applying in their mind. Look, just take the agricultural one. We got involved with an investment in land use redesign on a landscape basis, looking at agricultural production so that you could have multiple forms of revenue coming from agriculture, not just purely from traditional agriculture, but there would be incomes flowing from payments for ecosystem services. There might be renewable energy sites on properties, water trading to take water away from unsustainable use to more sustainable use. There's a whole lot of things you can do if you have the mindset about let's actually have an investment with a sustainable sort of focus. So I think it comes back to that issue of how do you get the investment community to see that there's not a trade-off here between returns and sustainable development. They both can be done together, integrated, to get an outcome. Can I just go on to an example of an area of concern? To take clean technologies. There's only one specialist clean tech fund in Australia. There is now almost a complete dry up of money going to clean tech from super funds. Why is that so when we are really facing the greatest problem we've ever seen before in terms of moving this economy to more sustainable outcomes? I mean, I'd like to see some innovations like money going from super funds into organisations that can actually help young entrepreneurs work out how they can sort of approach super funds to really get money to fund their ideas. I mean, there's a whole lot of things we could do that are outside the current thinking in our industry to try and get some buy-in to sustainable outputs. I think it's possible.
May I add here one point? I believe it is very important that the finance people will finance to sustainability. But I believe this will become a very important and new strategy when the finance people do more. To become a political actor, to formulate what regulations would you need that the private money will go to sustainability. We know a lot of such regulations, cancel tax subsidies for fossil and make feed-in tariffs and a lot more. And when you combine this strategy and when the finance industry with big names goes to the governmental people and says, yes, we need these regulations, then these regulations will come. When Greenpeace goes to the governmental people, they have mostly no success. But I want to try to make a new alliance with finance people worldwide, with Bay Area and California, with Chinese people and perhaps with some Australian people. We could organize it worldwide to influence the politicians with new regulations for sustainability.
Hans, one thing I noticed when I was doing a bit of online research about yourself, in Germany there's been a fairly strong little concerted campaign trying to debunk the fact that we have a problem with global warming. I saw De Bild and Der Spiegel, the front page, the great big carbon lie. So there's been a concerted media effort to undermine action towards movement to a clean energy economy. But you just talked before about 80% buy-in by the German population, despite such campaigns. How have you achieved that, and what advice have you got for Australian campaigners?
The campaigns against renewables goes on since decades. They become stronger Because now in Germany, the increasing of renewables is not only added to the normal electricity, to the conventional electricity production. Now when we increase more, you know we have 20% electricity from renewables. When we want to increase more, we have to cancel and to shut down nuclear power and coal power stations. So we see now the survival of the conventional industry, and they begin now to struggle very hard with such issues, with one man who is since decades a friend of nuclear power, and he operated a wind power company, but he was a friend for nuclear power instead of this Mr. Fahrenhold. And he wrote a book with a lot of lies against climate warming, and now the newspaper says climate warming would be a lie. So this is a converting of the reality, but it is a part of the fight for surviving the conventional energies. And we see this everywhere. In USA, it is very, very strong since a lot of years, and in Australia too. We have to highlight the points not only with climate protection when we speak about renewables. We have to highlight the peak oil problem, the rising oil prices, the coal polluting of your water in Australia, and a lot of other issues. What is a big damage for your whole economy? And highlight more these common economic issues, and then climate protection we will get as a gift nearby when we switch on an economic level to renewables. Renewables are already the cheapest electricity production from all when we compare new investment with new investment. And when we compare investment after financing, it is so cheap. No one can compare with it because renewables, except of biomass, are fuel-free, and therefore it is so cheap after financing periods.
I'm just keeping an eye on time, and we're getting close to 9 o'clock, so I might, I'll just ask if there's a question from the audience, and we'll take one or maybe two very quick questions, and our speakers will be available for people to come up and approach and have a more in-depth one-to-one conversation after this. So, see Patrick Hertz, you've got your hand up there.
Patrick Hertz from Zero Emissions. Thanks a lot, Hans. It's great to have you come out here and talk about the success in Germany. I'd like to hear from you what status solar PV is in Germany right now, because we've been watching very closely, and when we see the latest feed-in tariff reduction that's occurred in Germany, which is part of a step change in Germany, not the stop-start we have in Australia, it looks like the new cost for solar PV in Germany is now slightly cheaper at 24 euro cents than the average retail price of electricity at 27, 28 euro cents per kilowatt hour. That's gross. And so that, I'd like to hear from you, who's obviously quite involved in this, whether this is the case and whether this does actually mean that in Germany you've crossed grid parity and it is now cheaper. And also then how that is viewed by the politicians and the people who have set the regulations that have achieved this, with the understanding that up until now solar PV has had a cost, an extra cost, but in the future there's going to be many, many more times more capacity solar PV installed and negative cost, and therefore the effective initial cost of your feed-in tariff will be viewed in the future as one of the most worthwhile investments policies.
Yes, the price of solar electricity is dropping down very fast, faster than we could believe 10 years ago, much faster. In the last 3 years, we had half price for feed-in tariff than 3 years ago. This is a very big success story. But this is not only the German manufacturers, most drivers are the Chinese manufacturers. And this is a very good point for the global climate protection. Now I see that China will go to big photovoltaic systems in gigawatt power plants, and they seek the financing. If you have money, go to China, you will get a huge investment there. And when this happens, and it will happen this year, the price will go down much faster anymore. The photovoltaic system becomes the cheapest electricity production in the world in the coming decade. And therefore, a lot of other things will happen. We are already in grid parity in Germany, that the electricity consumer can produce on their roof in the same price the electricity what he has to pay for the grid operator to get the electricity. Yes, but this is not the most important point, because the roof owners need electricity during night and the cold winter when no solar electricity is there. So therefore, when we combine a photovoltaic system with a storage system and seek the grid parity there, then it will happen that a lot of house owners, whole villages or little towns will create, together with wind power and other with some storages, will produce that electricity by themselves, cheaper than to buy it from the big companies. This point is about 5 years in front of us, not more. And this will change in the world completely the energy system. It will become too bankrupt for existing investment who goes now to coal power electricity. I feel it is a stranded investment. Even to go to nuclear power like Obama does with new power plants, we see he gives a lot of subsidies. He has no chance anymore on an economic level to compete with the renewable energies in the future. But the finance people must know this, because they will lose a lot of money when they go now to the conventional energy system. And this will change very rapidly, and photovoltaic system is a technology like information technology. And you see how fast the dropping prices were when we look to personal computer and others. Remember, to Stanford University in the 80s, there were some people who told us, yes, we believe in personal computers. During IBM said personal computers will not come to the world. The same will come with renewable energies.
I might start to wrap proceedings because we are running out of time. And just dropping
Sorry, I'm too long.
That's fine. No, it's been terrific information, and I encourage people to come up and have a chat to our panel. And just finish with an anecdote. There's a very revered Australian political and military leader from last century, Sir John Monash, who actually imported German technology for extracting energy out of brown coal. And so the electrons streaming through the lights here today are still coming from that energy source. He was a terrific innovator and leader. I think he'd probably be disappointed that we haven't innovated further and moved further towards a clean and safe energy source. But I just think it's ironic that we've relied on German technology to power our state for a century, and it seems that once again we'll be looking to the Germans for their innovation and also their heavy lifting, the sacrifices they've made as early adopters to ride the cost curves, and again Australia will be the beneficiaries of this investment. So I'd like to thank you very much for your talk, and to all the panel here today for giving us your anecdotes and your experience and your knowledge. Thank you very much.